Now I'd like to introduce to you the chairman of the State Board of Pardons and Paroles, James W. Mills.
Thank you, Mark. Let me say thank you especially to our host, District Attorney Sherry Boston, for providing this great facility and arranging it. Thank you for the president as well. And you know, we were talking just a moment ago. One of our former board members, who I love dearly, Albert Murray, is on the board with the president, and it's just a great day to be here. As has already been stated, you know, this is National Victims Week, a week that's set aside to look at how much it does impact the lives of victims of crimes. You know, life can throw us curveballs sometimes that we don't ask for. And life is not an easy thing. It's not sometimes as kids that we embrace it and then we begin to live it and find out, wow, I didn't plan for this. But things happen sometimes, and I want to take a moment just to introduce the entire board so that you can know who they are. The Board of Pardons and Parole has been tasked with a difficult task by the governor of this state. Each board member serves a 7-year term, and of course we make decisions individually, and those votes are passed along to the next member as we make our decision. And we are here today to hear from victims who have input to give to us, things that we cannot always find in a court document, that are always not listed in a file. You know, I've already had 2 meetings this morning, so have our other board members. We've got 2 board members that are meeting now as this ceremony is going on. And it's a range of emotions already this morning, you know, to speak with a victim who's going through deep, deep sorrow. I want to introduce to you our vice chairman on the Pardon and Parole, and ask him if he would stand. Braxton Cotton was appointed to the board in 2013. He's a former state trooper and was former director of the Criminal Justice Coordinating Council, the CJCC. And then also want to introduce Ms. Jacqueline Bunn. Ms. Jacqueline is an attorney who began her career as an assistant attorney general, and she also is a former director of the CJCC. And back in the rooms behind us, meeting with victims right now, they were here early in the morning. Board member Brian Owens, who began his law enforcement career as a parole officer. He also served as Commissioner of Corrections under 2 different governors, and he's meeting with people as we speak. And then also Terry Barnard, who was recently reappointed by Governor Deal to a second full term as a board member. He served 3 years as chairman of this body, and he served 16 years in the state legislature. And then last, myself, my name is James Mills. I'm honored and privileged to get to serve as chair of the parole board. My background is business, and I hesitate to tell the last part, but served in the legislature for 19 years, also in the House, and enjoyed serving the people there. I also want to thank our Commissioner of Department of Community Supervision, Michael Nail is here. Michael, will you just wave your hand, stand up? He actually helps supervise many of the people that are out on parole or probation. In his agency, he oversees that. They're here today. They're helping us with the logistics of today. And thank you, Michael, for your cooperation. It's always appreciated. And then we also have the Department of Corrections that is well represented here today. I saw one of our wardens here early. I don't know if he's in the room. Warden Wayne Perkins, I think, who he was here earlier, and there'll be one of our wardens, if not more than one, here today from the Department of Corrections, who we oftentimes during this process, as we meet with victims, they will say something like this. The guy's in prison, but he has a Facebook account. And we say, really? We have Department of Corrections right here with us, and we have a warden. We call the warden into the room. The warden comes. They say this guy has a Facebook. Let me tell you, within about 30 minutes, that guy's world begins to change in the prison system again like it ought to be. And so that's how this system works. We work together with the Department of Corrections, with the Department of Community Supervision, with the Parole Board, and last but not least, of course, the Georgia Office of Victim Services, who helps coordinate all of this and put it together. We've scheduled to see well over 150 people today and tomorrow. And when I say 150 people, I mean 150 appointments with probably somewhere over 400 people involved in all of those numbers. So we've got a large job in front of us, and my eyesight's not what it used to be, but is Shalandra Robertson? Where are you, Shalandra? I don't recognize you in the back, waving her hand. Shalandra. Thank you for the great job that you've done in helping coordinate this and put it together. It is no small undertaking to put on an event like this. I've got a lot of other things that I could say this morning, and things that I've been encouraged to say, but I want to speak to you for a moment just from my heart. We have two programs that I do want to mention. The Victim Offender Dialogue, which you can find out more information about at any of our registration tables outside, which is a great program, I believe in strongly, that gives you as a victim the right to have a dialogue with you, the person that's in control of that dialogue, with them in handcuffs, chained, under supervision, and at any moment you can terminate that dialogue if you don't like the way things are going. There is a process to train you for that takes somewhere between 6 months and a year to get you ready for that. But I believe strongly in that, and many people have found great healing and even a release in their own heart, as the chaplain so eloquently prayed earlier, that people would find forgiveness and release. And forgiveness is one of the toughest things in life we're ever asked to do. We're asked to give it to people that don't deserve it. If you're a person of faith, you know that all too well, because there was someone who gave that to me. And I did not deserve it. And this day, I don't deserve it. But I stand today because of it. And the only hope in changing society is that word, forgiveness. So it's vital to this process, I believe. We also have a victims assistant program that you can volunteer, and you can help other victims who are on this pilgrimage. They're on this journey. And that is my segue into speaking to you from my heart just for a moment. The scripture says this. It says in Psalm 84, verse 5, "Blessed is the man whose heart is set on a pilgrimage." This is not my home. I'm on a pilgrimage. Now listen. I got a house, I got a car, I got, things that I've invested in, but this is not my home. And I'm on a pilgrimage. And a person who lives like that is a very blessed person. They find joy in places when joy cannot be found. And that's the next verse that comes right after that. It says, "Blessed is the man whose heart is set on a pilgrimage, and when he passes through the valley of Baca, there will be fountains of pools that appear." You can't understand that verse unless you know a little bit of the Hebrew word. Baca is the valley of sorrow. For when he passes through the valley of sorrow and tears, in that person's life, because his heart is set on pilgrimage, fountains of joy come up, pools of water in a desert land. If anybody was going to instruct me on what to say, they would never advise me, Mark, to talk like I'm talking right now. But I'm doing it because I know I'm supposed to. When you walk through the valley of Baca, the valley of sorrow, It is a painful, painful experience. But you don't have to stay in the valley of Baca. Because if your heart is set on a pilgrimage, you're just passing through. The story is attributed to Ernest Hemingway. He was a prolific writer, and boy, what a powerful artist of words. And whether or not it really happened or not, I don't know, but it's a great story, Mark. Maybe you can investigate it and find out. I don't want to mess up my good story.
It may be apocryphal.
Yes. The story is told that Ernest Hemingway would meet with a group of authors at lunch. And he was challenged with a bet one day. And they bet Ernest Hemingway, they said, we bet that you cannot write a short story using 6 words. And Ernest Hemingway took out a napkin, which I happen to have some of my notes on. I hope I'm not the only one that does that. But anyway, Ernest Hemingway took out a napkin and he wrote a short story. 6 words. 6 words was his short story. And here they are. For sale, baby shoes never worn. For sale, baby shoes never worn. Somebody passed through that valley of Baca. There's a lot of things we can say with just a few short 6 words. And I want to share with you a few more. 6 words that changed my life a month before I started on this parole board 6.5 years ago. There has been a terrible accident. 6 words. There has been a terrible accident. And everybody in here today has had some sorrowful valley experience that you've had to pass through. But you don't have to stay there. You can pass through it. And I am so very thankful that God has helped me pass through that valley. And I have learned that it is a great, great privilege when God allows you to go through the valley of sorrow. It's no fun. It's like surgery. It's painful. But when you come out on the other side, things are so much better. And I never would have said that when I'm in the valley of Baca. When you get the phone call. I never would have said that if you've heard these 6 words. Your position is no longer needed. Your position is no longer needed. Or maybe you've heard this one. Here's a rose off the casket. Here's a rose off the casket. You see, just a few minutes and our lives can change dramatically. And victims in this room can testify so loudly to that. It is the task of the parole board to try to weigh justice for all and yet liberty and fairness and forgiveness somehow meeting in the middle. It's a task that's greater than we can do as humans. It takes divine intervention, in my opinion. And I hope that this day, when you leave, you can look back on it and you can say, boy, I've had some great experiences today. I learned some things that I didn't know. I've got some information now that I'm armed with that I didn't have. And I just want to encourage you today. Blessed is the man whose heart is set on a pilgrimage. And when he passes through the valley of Baca, there will be a fountain that will flow. I've met so many people who have gone through so many more sorrows than I have ever gone through. And I watch those people as they pass through that valley and they come out on the other side. Their fountain of life is so much higher than mine because they had to go through that deep, deep time of sorrow. I'm not anywhere, any stretch of the imagination, the man I should be. But I'm on a pilgrimage. And when Paul said that I may know him and the power of his resurrection. Oh yeah, we all want to shout and jump. But the next part, and the fellowship of his sufferings. That's what this day's about. You've had some horrible crimes committed, and you can go through this valley and come out on the other side. On behalf of the parole board, we are real people. We live real life. We too have had crimes committed against us. While we cannot understand your pain, we try very hard. And I have learned in my own life, because of the valley of Baca, God has given me a divine compassion that I can't understand sometimes. When I walk out of that room just a moment ago, after speaking with someone who had just horrific loss, and then come into a room like this, put on a smile, tell you a little story. But it's my prayer and my hope that you know forgiveness. Mark, thank you.